Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America show. I hope the show finds all of you well, and welcome into another edition. I am your host, Ben Crossman, and I think we're going to kick things off here just by saying happy hump day. Of course, that's the thing, I guess. So happy hump day. I hope you all are having a great day. And why don't we get things started by saying that today's guest should be no mystery because he has been as regular as rain for the past couple of years. Let's face it. Actually, a number of years. One of our longest running correspondents, Mr. Mike Cermak, owner and operator of techguide.org, and of course, Computer America correspondent. So he is going to join us to talk all about technology, all about, of course, we like to squeeze you, Tesla stories in there and the like. But also, if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, feel free to email us live at computeramerica.com. And Mike is very, very good at tech support. Of course, he owns and operates techguide.org, but by day, he also does pretty much the same thing. I believe it's a computer consulting that he does as a day trade. So, hey, if you have any kind of comments or questions, live at computeramerica.com. So, with that being said, before we get into Mike Cermak, let's talk about computeramerica.com, because that is where you will find everything and anything for today's show, including links to any articles we talk about, of course, a link to our guest website, or just anything else. You can find it at computeramerica.com. Also, while you're there, be sure to check out the live video stream where you can watch Computer America, not just listen, and enter our social media contest, where every Friday we give away a prize from our friends over at Logitech. This time, we're giving away the M720 Triathlon mouse. It's a great mouse, runs on one AA battery. I don't know when the technology came about, but runs on one AA battery for 2 years and can control up to 3 computers at the same time. It's less confusing when you just go check it out. So again, all that at computeramerica.com. So without further ado, I think we're just going to get Mike on in here. And once again, welcome on Mike Cermak, owner and operator of techguide.org and Computer America correspondent. Mike, thank you so much for joining us once again.
My pleasure, Benjamin. How are you doing today?
Doing just apple dandy. And, it's great to have you on because, there's a lot of tech stories that we haven't gotten into for the past couple days. We've had our guests, which we love, go long, and haven't been able to get into a lot of the stories that, that we're about to. So,
no worries. We'll help you get caught up here.
Definitely. And there's a lot to go over as well. But before we do, how's everything going on over at techguide.org? How are you doing?
Doing very well. I appreciate you asking. Yes, everyone's well and happy. No big news to report. One of my main technicians at my day job was out in Panama for the last week, so I've been covering some of his jobs. And he is back as of today. So I am taking a big sigh of relief and appreciating him a little bit more than I did a week ago. and yes, so things are very cheery in my world today.
And of course, to pick on Apple, I'm sure that he did not mean to go to Panama. It's just Apple Maps took him in the wrong direction, and he wound up there. So
that's so mean.
I know. Glad to have him back. And yes, I know we will be talking about a lot of Apple stuff. So had to get a pot shot in there before we say, this Apple or this. Before we say that this episode is brought to you by Apple, because it is not. So, but I think we should kind of start there and kind of poke along. But
if Apple wants to sponsor the show, we promise not to do any pot shots at them then.
Oh, absolutely. Pay us and we will never speak another ill word about you again. But until then, Apple, they had a WWDC and quite a few hits and misses. And at the same time, they they showed that they didn't forget about half of their lineup that like they have over the past couple of years, because they had a new iMac, which hasn't really been talked about or revamped in a couple of years. They had a number of different products, but I think the one that made the biggest splash is because this entire line, and of course, you mentioned before the show that you have one. For everyone out there who's not familiar, why don't you, Mike, give everyone kind of your impressions of where you think digital home assistants or things like Alexa or things like
Google
Google
Home.
Home or things like that, how do you think they fit in, and what do you think about Apple finally jumping in?
Yeah, I think it's such an exciting time we live in where we have these new whole categories of technology that no one could have even imagined a few years ago. It reminds me of when iPads first came out. And I've said this before on the show. I think that when Apple first announced and showed the iPad, I knew I had to have one. I told my wife, I said, I need to get one of those. I have no idea what I'm going to use it for, but I know I need one. Like, it was one of those things where, these companies are so clever to see a need before we understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt the same way when these home assistant speakers came out. The Google Home and the Amazon Echo or Alexa. And what they are is just a little speaker you plug in. It connects to your Wi-Fi. You just plug it into the power. It doesn't connect to anything else other than your Wi-Fi, and you can talk to it and ask it, what are the sports, scores today? What's the weather going to be like tomorrow? Turn on the lights, turn off the lights. To, put this on my to-do list. Play this music, whatever sort of things you'd want to, ask it to do. And when I first saw these demonstrated by, Amazon and Google, I thought, that's kind of a gimmick. I don't think anyone would actually use those except perhaps as an expensive Bluetooth speaker. And then eventually I broke down and got one,
Mm-hmm.
and I really enjoy it and use it every day. I mean, I'm in the in the kitchen in the morning and asking what the weather's going to be like, and have it read me the news and turn on and off the lights, and it's
And
and put things on the shopping list, and
I
it's
mean,
really convenient.
but I guess my hesitation, because I don't have one yet. I've been looking at them, but I haven't made the jump. And I remember very clearly my pre-smartphone, pre-iPhone era of my life, thinking going into it, well, I do everything, my feature phone, my dumb phone does everything I need before going into it. And I said, well, I really won't be using most of this. And
Right.
then, now skip ahead to 7, 8 years later after getting a smartphone, and I can't imagine living without it. Like I have bought the whole thing, hook, line, and sinker. Do you think that? Yeah, and obviously these things are improving month over month. They're getting new recipes, they're getting new features,
Right.
synced over the cloud. But you've lived with one for a little while. Do you think that eventually home assistants are going to be kind of like smartphones, where sure you can go without one, but after you get one, they're pretty integral?
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll take some time to get to that point where they're that widely accepted and almost, almost expected. But I think we will get there. It's just such a convenience, and
Right.
yeah, I
Right.
could see that happening.
Right. Yeah. And it could certainly possibly happen. And I think Apple, they and Apple was in this weird. I mentioned this yesterday on today's show. Yesterday on yesterday's show, when I was
Time traveling.
I know, yesterday on today's show, when I was talking about the new HomePod, which is of course WWDC. Apple, they released the HomePod, which is kind of think of like a 6-inch cylinder with kind of. I guess you can call it nice looking. Apple has this thing with minimalism that
I
really.
like the minimalist, although I have heard people call it a roll of toilet paper.
That's actually pretty good. Okay, so a very very thick roll of toilet paper. There you go, and picture kind of that, and it has glowing lights on top. Very minimalist, but at the same time, Apple was in a very strange position where Apple came out with Siri first. Like, no one had ever
Hmm.
seen anything like Siri. They were like, wow, Siri is really capable. Look at her answer this silly pre recorded question. And, they were the first into the field. But after having seen Amazon Alexa really take off, after having seen Google Assistant and how powerful it's become and how quickly it has done so, Siri has really been lacking compared to these two. And
Yep.
Siri is kind of the AI in the Apple HomePod. So I,
Yep.
I, I don't know. And
And it's
yeah,
go ahead.
well,
I,
I was gonna ask your opinion on the whole HomePod thing.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because I missed that coming. I didn't see that coming. The whole that Apple would be getting into this industry, and I certainly should have seen it coming. It seems so obvious in retrospect, but it didn't occur to me that Apple would get into the space until I started hearing some of the rumors just before the conference, and I was like, oh yeah, of course they will. Of course they're going to make their own device to compete with Apple and Google. That's what these companies do.
Mm-hmm.
They make their own devices, copy them among one another, and try to compete with one another. And so, on that sense, it's not that surprising. And I think they've done a good job at designing it. It's presumably got a lot better speakers from what we've heard so far. And of course, I haven't seen one of these in person yet. They've just been announced, but they've got much better speakers in them than what the Amazon. I keep wanting to call it Amazon Alexa instead of Amazon Echo
Echo,
has.
right?
Um, and uh, and I think that's important. I think a lot of people have been let down by the speakers in some of these that they don't quite hold up to what you would expect. And supposedly this is going to be a bit of an improvement on that. And also, it's kind of interesting that they can communicate with one another. So if you have more than one of these home pods in more than one room, you can just have them all playing the same music at the same time, and just have them aware of one another, which seems like a good idea.
That's
Um,
and just real quick, I mean that is the selling point, and that's kind of what we hit on yesterday with the article was the Apple HomePod is first and foremost a high-end speaker. I mean, Apple doesn't really do much, that isn't really high end. I mean, that's kind of their niche. They do things well and they do them expensively,
right.
but they said that compared to comparable, or yeah, compared to comparable, but comparable speakers are about in the same price range, except this has a little bit of Siri added into it. It's not really better than Siri or Google Home when it comes to the assistant feature. That will probably improve over time. But what you were saying about the speaker being better than the Echo or the Google Home, that is it hands down. Like there is no competition. Apple has the best speaker with a smart assistant that anyone does. But at the same time, Apple's not really Apple's pushing it first and foremost as a speaker. They're not pushing
They
it
really are. You're
as a digital
absolutely right.
assistant. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, eh,
They're really pushing the speaker, and they need to differentiate it from the other ones because the price on these things is going to be $350 when they come out,
yeah.
which is much more than you'd pay for Google Home or Alexa. I mean, Google Home is 110. I keep calling it Alexa instead of Echo. I'm so used to saying that in my home, but
Yeah.
and Echo is anywhere from $50 to $180 depending on which one you get. And this thing's going to be 350. So I mean, again, it like you said, it's the high end. It is the Apple. You always pay a premium for Apple, and it's going to be interesting when we start getting some hands on to see if it's really worth paying two or three times more for seemingly the same product. I think the key to it is going to be the integration with other Apple devices. What will this device be able to do as you talk to it that it can then make changes to your iPhone or communicate through your iPhone? And that's where they're going to get you. If it has better integration with the iPhone than the other devices, then I think they're going to be able to really start to get into that market.
See, and I agree with you halfway. I agree with you that it's really going to depend on integration, but in my mind, it's not integration with the iPhone or the Apple products because it'd be pretty nice for the Apple TV to work with your iMac, to work with your iPhone, to work with your Apple Watch, yada yada yada. That's pretty cool. But the thing that makes the Echo so rewarding to use, and the thing that makes Google Home so rewarding to use, is how it interacts with other things, with everything else. I mean, Amazon has a great open API that anyone can buy into, and anyone can kind of program for. If
Yes.
Apple doesn't have that same level of flexibility, because Apple, they're just coming out with it. The Echo of 2 years ago is not the Echo that we have today because of the integration. I think other
Mhm.
companies are going to make or break this product because the hardware it's there. Like that cannot really be improved. So if you buy that, that's great. In 6 months, if Apple HomePod, the software end of it, if the integration to other companies really gets up there, it might be the best, digital home assistant
That's
on the market.
Yep, you're absolutely right. That's going to be critical, as it always is, to get third-party companies involved in it. I mean, that's how you see phone platforms die, is that you don't have enough developers who care enough about that platform. And it's a bit of a chicken and the egg, right? Because developers don't want to spend time creating software for a platform that isn't being used, and people don't want to buy into a platform that isn't getting software developed for it.
Windows
But in this
Windows found that out the hard way. Windows found that out the hard
Yeah,
way.
yeah. Well, and you can see that, and with BlackBerry as they've started to go away. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, no one really develops apps for a BlackBerry anymore, and Palm when they were coming in and out, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly right. And Windows is certainly that. I mean, you look at the number of apps available for Android versus Apple versus Windows. I mean, it's just there's no comparison, and it's hard to do that. But I think they're going to have quite a leg up because presumably they're going to have this was announced at a developers conference, first of all. So I'm sure they're going to be having it widely available for developers to be able to play with, one would expect. Assuming that is the case, I think it's going to go well. And you could easily see, as far as the integration goes, where when you go on your iPhone and go to the App Store to purchase an app, that, right now it has a little indicator saying this, app works with the Apple Watch.
Mm-hmm.
It'll also have a little, indicator there that, hey, this also works with the HomePod. So you can talk to your HomePod and it'll, give you responses from this app I'm about to buy or download. And I think that sort of level of integration is going to be important, and that's what's going to get people to buy it from Apple for 3 times more than what they could get it from Google or Amazon.
I certainly hope so, but at the same time, we've seen what Apple has done with the Apple HomeKit, and where
Yeah.
Amazon has really opened it up to developers and third parties and everyone. Apple has kept it just as close-fisted as they do, the iTunes in the iTunes store. They're really hawkish about what is allowed on there, and that's great because you know that anything that's on iTunes is going to work. It's not going to be a scam. It's you're going to get your money back, but at the same time, it really hinders the amount of content that you can get. So, A and
Yep.
B, A and B.
And HomeKit is a good thing to bring up here because obviously that's going to be a big part of the usefulness of
Yeah.
the HomePod is that you're going to be talking to it in order to turn your lights on or off or unlock the door or change the temperature or whatever you want it to do.
Right. Yeah. I always assume that Siri will be the interface that you control your HomePod through, but then HomeKit will be the backend that
Yeah,
integrates it
obviously.
into
Mhm.
everything else. So, but yeah,
But you're
and
right. So
yeah,
so so to take exactly what you're saying to the next level, I mean the or to reiterate what you were saying is that the HomePod's usefulness is going to be limited to how well HomeKit is adopted by manufacturers.
and right now it's not. So,
Right.
um, but maybe now with maybe now with a physical product, it's not just Apple products, but now it's Apple Home Digital Assistant. Maybe now it can start to flourish because they have it in that space. But hey, we'll figure it out. But in the meantime, we have a lot more Apple news. I did not mean to take 20 minutes to talk about that, but hey, it was a good conversation. But we have other Apple things. I kind of want to cram them all into the first segment of the show. And yeah, Mike, just in general, how would you rate yourself as Apple fanboyish or Apple fan, or how do you like Apple hardware when it comes to computers? They're old bread and butter.
Yeah, I try to be as agnostic as I can. I have a little bit of everything. I have an Android phone, I have an iPad, my wife has an iPhone. I mostly work on Windows, but I have an iMac. So I mean, I have a MacBook. So I try to use a little bit of everything. And I've actually, the more and more I've been using Apple products, especially in the last year or two, the more I've been enjoying them. And I know all my Windows friends will hate to hear me say that. I'm not giving up on Android or Windows, but it's just I'm not a fanboy by any means, but it's certainly I see a lot of room for Apple.
Right.
How's that for a vague answer?
That was perfectly agnostic as you called it, and yeah,
There's pros and cons to every platform, whether it's Windows or Android or app iOS or whatever it is. And so I think it's silly to say, oh, that one sucks and that one's the best. It's just not true.
well, and actually, I'll go through this one real quick, and then we'll get your response. But one of the advantages of Apple is that they've always at least one of their selling points has always been they just work. You know, if you want something that just works out of the box, you know, hey, that's Apple for you. And another selling point, which they are extending, is Apple Care. Apple Care is you buy a well, you take out a small loan, you go to the Apple Store, you buy an iMac, or you buy a MacBook Pro or what have you, and you get Apple Care, or at least you can pay for 2 to 3 year Apple Care, and their warranty program is really one of the best in the business. And according to WWDC this Monday, and this article from Engadget, it's getting a little bit better. We're saying that, but yeah, again, Engadget and author Daniel Cooper, but they're saying that Apple Care, of course, is Apple's extended warranty program. And now they have, of course, Apple Care Plus, which covers the iOS devices. And, they said that it can protect against accidental damage. Well, now we have Apple Care Plus for Macs. And, Mike, I don't know how much you work with, like big, iMacs or what have you, or even MacBooks that have, some kind of damage to them other than software. But,
Oh yeah,
now with
they're not easy to fix.
yeah, but now with the Apple Care Plus for Mac, if you so choose to opt into it, you can either pay $99 or you can pay $300. That's right, $300 for Apple Care Plus for, I think it's 2 years. If you spill anything on it, if you damage it, if you accidentally take a swing at it with a baseball bat, I guess. I mean, if you really do anything with it, they'll take care of it. Like, they'll pretty much replace your laptop or your MacBook or your iMac through Apple Care Plus. How does that
Well,
kind of
and
make you feel? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the thing is the deductible. You have to keep that in mind as well. You
That's
got to
true.
pay for the Apple Care Plus, and then you have a deductible depending on the type of accidental damage. If it's a broken screen or just the outside is dented or something relatively simple, it's $99 for that. But if it's something more severely damaged, you dropped it in the pool, then it's $299, which is still, it sounds like a lot, but how much is a MacBook? So,
Right.
you know,
It's
it's
two to three
it's
thousand
still,
dollars. Yeah.
yeah, so if you're clumsy, it's still maybe worthwhile. I'm usually not a big fan of extended warranties in general. Macs are a little bit of a different thing. Apple products in general are a little bit of a different thing because they're so difficult to work on. It's not as though you can just take them down to your local computer shop and they can work on it. Very often you need a certified place to work on it, and it's just hard and expensive to work on them. Changing a screen on a MacBook or changing a whatever. It's there's certain things that aren't easy to do on those, and so I don't know. I'm a little bit on the fence on that. I'm still not a big fan of extended warranties, but I might let someone go with that.
Yeah, extended warranties have always been a thing with me as well. I mean, it's something goes wrong and it's like 18 months into a 2 year kind of thing, and there's always some kind of loophole where they won't warranty what went wrong. It's
Well, and you have the
yeah,
deductible then, and
that's it.
yeah,
Uh,
self-insuring I think is a better choice.
There you go. So yeah, and that is again one other thing they of course, like, I really feel like this WWDC was all about saying, hey, we haven't forgotten about every other part of our business, because for the last
Right.
couple of years, it's been all about the iPad, iPhone, and the MacBook Pro. Like, that's all they've talked about. And this time they really hit all the others, including, like you mentioned, Siri, coming into new platforms. Of course, the new iMacs. They have the iMac Pro is now up to a 5K display, 4 terabyte solid state drive, 128 gigs of ECC memory, 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports. I mean, like, their
Yeah,
new iMac Pro line is really ramping up as well. Of course, they start at $5,000, but hey,
minor detail.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah, that's crazy though.
they're showing that they're showing that they haven't completely forgotten about their other lineups, which is good.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, they touched on every possible product line that they've ever had, basically. So it's they're trying to keep everything alive.
Including the Apple Pencil. I don't know why. Um, They've also, and I'm just going through our notes here, that they also introduced a 10.5-inch iPad Pro. So
Yeah.
if you have the 9-inch iPad and you're like, this thing is so small, I need something 10.5-inch. There you go. Pretty good.
Well, and I think that makes sense as they allow you to do multitasking on that device to, be able to have it be a larger screen and make it more useful. It's blurring the line, right between, what is the laptop and what is the tablet. When you get to that point,
It's
stick a wireless keyboard on it and
Yeah, it's getting to that, but just like the $5,000 iMac Pro, and just like the iPad Pro and things like that, I feel like their Pro line, there's a certain community that has been in love with Macs for the longest time, and it's those who are artists, creators,
right.
movie editors, people like that. I think they really reaffirmed that they have products that can suit them for bigger form factors, more processing power, blah blah blah. Of course, if price has to have no meaning for you, but they, for creators, they really showed off a lot of cool things. So,
Yep.
yep. So there's that. Let's see. They had some other things about the Apple Watch. I don't know why, but they did. They have a new Mac operating system, which is now called High Sierra. Just an FYI, if you are a Mac user, watch out for High Sierra. And yeah, just the WWDC in general. Yeah, that's just about all I can think about to talk. Like, there's some news about the Safari and how it will block desktop ad tracking and autoplay videos as you browse. That's pretty cool,
Yeah.
though.
Well, and I have mixed feelings about that. As a person who runs a free website that makes money by ads, I think that if we get to the point where we block too many ads or ways of doing ads, it may be the end of the free internet. The companies that create content on the internet and the websites you go to for free, those people have to be paid somehow, and advertising is a great way for it to happen so that you don't have to actually pay them out of your pocket. So
Right.
I always get concerned when I hear about these sort of things. And fortunately, it's been a little bit exaggerated about exactly what it will do. What it actually does is it has this intelligent tracking prevention feature, and it bases how it's going to block the cookies based on how often you visited that type of that site. So if you've
Mm,
just visited a site once, it won't have those cookies last very long. If you go there every day, then they will. So if you visit the website frequently, then that gives them more ability to track you than just a one-off. And that makes sense. So they're doing some intelligence behind it. It's been a little bit exaggerated in the news that it just blocks all ad tracking,
right.
and that would be a bad thing.
I mean, yeah, that's a great point. I mean, you run a free site, I run a free site. It's great to be able to provide a service to people that you can tell anyone and everyone, come on in, it's free. Join into our community. It's a lot of fun, and you don't have that paywall there to block users out. But at the same time, advertising, of course, makes a lot of that possible. And we just did an article the other day about Google. I'm not sure if you heard about Chrome, but in a next generation, in maybe maybe the next couple of weeks, Google Chrome will have an ad blocker built into Google Chrome. Did you hear about that at all?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. So Google Chrome, they are going to be blocking ads, of course, only ads. Well, no. They're going to be blocking ads from websites that violate the Better Ads practice or whatever it is.
Uh-huh.
So they have like full screen pop up video ads or video ads with loud sound, things like that. If you violate too many of those, they take away or they block all the advertising on that website. So I mean, I think a lot
I
of
think that's a
companies, yeah,
much better way to do it. If you do that, if you have that available to users, then they're much less likely to go and block all ads using an easy to find extension or plugin that will do that for you. I think that's a much more reasonable way to handle it.
Well, yeah, and the reason I kind of bring it up is that it's a problem that companies from all sides, it's advertisers are of course looking for ways to increase, response rates for their advertising, but it's also web browser company, Safari here, Chrome there, they're all looking for ways to improve the experience for, you know,
For users.
yeah, for average users.
And it's a fine line to walk because what makes the users happy may put the publishers out of business.
Right. It's definitely a fine line to walk. So, hey, Mike, we are just about out of time. Well, not out of time. We're about to go into break, so that's what music means. I know you can't hear it, but everyone else, we'll be right back with Mike Cermak, and we'll be talking about more as we move on to things such as, of course, Trump. I know we don't talk about much him here on the show, but he's doing something with Twitter, and it ain't right. So we'll be right back, Computer America, right after this.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 31 minutes past the hour, and we're continuing on with, of course, Mike Cermak, owner and operator of TechGuy.org. And we are just now getting back into computer and technology news. There's a lot of it to cover, and just finished up with the WWDC. Apple showed, I think, a lot of really important improvements to a lot of their products, but I've heard a number of critiques, or at least I've read a number of critiques saying that Apple is still looking a little lost. Like the HomePod, it's certainly a new product. You can't argue with them. That's a new product, but at the same time, it's 2 years late to the field. Just like, the Apple Watch, it was something that, Apple had to kind of make the niche for itself, because, it was kind of already filled with the Samsungs of the world and what have you. I don't know. So first half of the show, if you missed any part of that, head on over to Computer America and you can re-listen to audio and video of that. But we continue on with Mike, and just why don't we jump into what I mentioned earlier with President Trump. We don't talk about him much on the show because he is so inflammatory, but it's hard to it's hard to avoid that little that little sticking point when Trump invades the tech world, because it's politics and tech. It's very touchy subject, but at the same time, it's very important to talk about because the idea of technology it really is a force for good, and it's a force for for terrible things when censorship and what have you. Whatever. I don't know where I was going with that, but at the same time, what's Trump doing with Twitter?
Yeah, well, isn't that always the question? Sorry, I don't want to get too political.
Yeah.
So what's interesting with Twitter is that Trump has blocked a number of people who have, been who have disagreed with him on certain topics.
Mm-hmm.
And so on Twitter, you can go in and you can ban people so that they don't see your posts and you don't see their posts, and they can't reply or be involved in the dialogue that happens as a result of those tweets, which is all well and good. But the question has arisen that, according to at least one organization, that may be against the First Amendment. And I'm not taking a legal stance on this, but according to them, by preventing people from being able to see those tweets and being able to be involved in the conversation that happens as a result of them, that may be a violation of the First Amendment of the freedom of speech.
I feel like there are, of course, others who are better versed in what constitutes free speech, but I mean, isn't that the reason why we say I accept to those extremely long-winded letters before you start using a service, the end user license agreement or the terms of service, what have you? I mean, free speech is great and all, but Twitter is a company, is a service, and they can do whatever they want, whatever they feel is right. Of course, backlash be damned, but if they want to do that, I mean, Twitter is not a fundamental constitutional right. I don't see how, how that could be infringing on your First Amendment for him blocking you on Twitter. Like, I,
Yep.
I, I
Well,
don't see the
and it's funny
connection.
because the First Amendment and freedom of speech is something that so many people get confused. I actually work with a nonprofit who handles a lot of constitutional law, and so I'm a little bit familiar with it. I'm certainly not an attorney, so please don't take anything as legal advice. But it's funny because even on my own site, on Tech Support Guy, we get people who come in there and they spout terrible things, or they tell people how to hack, or they how to download things illegally or whatever, and we'll ban them, and we'll kick them out if they don't follow our rules. And then I've had, I don't know, dozens of people over the years come and say, well, that's my First Amendment right of freedom of speech. I can say whatever I want. And exactly as you're saying, Ben, that doesn't apply to private places. I can ban people however I want. If you come into my house and say something I don't like, I can kick you out. So individuals can limit speech on their property or on their websites. Twitter can say from today on you're only allowed to talk about rainbows and nothing else. They're allowed
Right.
to do that.
Yeah.
The problem becomes when it's the government who's limiting that speech. So if it's an individual or corporation doing it on their location, that's okay. But if the government says you're not allowed to talk anymore about this, then that becomes the problem with constitutional law.
So,
Now,
yeah.
the real go ahead.
Yeah, I guess my other question is that, like, let's say Computer America has, some lovely person who does not like Computer America, and they go off on Computer America on rants, daily. You're saying that Computer America can ban that person. I can't see them. They can't see me. That's done. But the reason that this is a problem is that Donald Trump is the president of the United States and therefore a public figure. Like, it's just the station of the user is the difference here.
Right. And that it's an official account. And that's, somewhat in question as well, I think. But, if it was, on someone's personal social media page that they don't use for an official, purpose, then that would be one thing. But if it's something that they use in conjunction with their position, then that's
Okay.
another. We actually have an issue here, actually, in the town where I live with the mayor, and he put some things on his Facebook page that he uses to communicate with the public and make announcements and so on, and then took something off, and there's a whole question about if there's a legal connection with that, if that is public record or not, because he does use it as part of his. So it's kind of a messy thing, and social media makes it confusing. And in this case, in terms of whether or not the president can ban people from the White House Twitter account or the official Twitter account, comes down to whether it's considered a public forum of where people have a First Amendment right, and where the government isn't allowed to limit speech. And so it's
I
actually very
Yeah.
complicated, and I don't know exactly how it's going to go. And it's not a lawsuit yet. They've sent a letter to the White House saying they feel that this is the case, and they're going to wait for them to respond before, or give them some time to be able to respond before they go into litigation. But it would be a complex issue. It's not as black and white as people would probably expect.
That is, and really, I kind of came into this thinking it was going to be black and white, where it's Twitter. Twitter can do what they darn well please. And, even though he's the president, he's also just another user of Twitter. But you're right. I mean, he does use it for presidential announcements. He announces, legislation on there. And, and yeah, you're right. What is public record? What is official record? And I can start to see where it gets a little bit, where it gets a little muddled. So, hey, this is, as many people have said it, this is the first time we've had a Twitter president. And yeah, it's I can start to see where the fallout becomes a little strange. I do think that, someone in their station, not to call out anyone, the president, the White House, or anyone in between, but for them to, no, that gets political. Let's not go there. So, With that
Well,
being said,
and I
yeah,
think the real thing is that if you hold a public office, whether it's a local tiny town mayor or the president of the United States, if you have, a personal account that you keep just for personal purposes,
right.
and then you have a public account where it's, Senator so and so or Representative so and so or whatever that you use for public, purposes, that makes it a little bit easier. And then it's easy to tell what stuff is public and what stuff is still private. And then on the public one, if you that freedom of speech issue might come up. It'll be interesting to
Trump,
see how that all works out.
right. Trump has definitely, President Trump has definitely taken his personal account, what we know as his personal account, and turned it into a public profile, or even right there, I'm visiting his Twitter account, and it says right there, 45th president of the United States of America. Obviously, he lists his title as such. It's not Donald J. Trump's personal Twitter account. This is the
Right.
Twitter account
Well,
of the president. So
that's exactly right, and that's a key part of it. And to go back to what you said before, that Twitter can do whatever they want. They certainly could if they banned a user for whatever reasons, because they were spamming or because they just didn't like the color of their tie. Twitter's allowed to do that, but
yeah.
it's when the government restricts people's speech that it becomes an issue.
Right. It would be interesting to see if, of course, maybe the president of the United States couldn't ban people from their Twitter account, but at the same time, Twitter could ban the president from the Twitter service. Like, that'd be a weird dichotomy.
Yeah.
Not say it's happening. I'm just saying that
Well, and that
it's
kind of
interesting.
is true. I mean, that is the case. But I think that's the kind of world we want to live in, where the government doesn't have that superpower to be able to limit individuals' speech. At least, certainly not on that regard. Certainly not based on whether or not you agree with them.
That's
To
true.
ban someone's speech because they don't agree with the government is kind of the whole foundation of freedom of speech. So the question then becomes, is someone being able to follow you on Twitter fall into that? And I don't think our forefathers wrote anything about Twitter specifically. So that
No, I I I I don't think they did at all, and I don't think anyone could have anticipated this even 15, 20 years ago, let alone 200, 250 years ago. So, trying times, new times, and yeah, it like you said, right now it's not a lawsuit, it's not another rally that's going to be happening on the on the national lawn. Instead, it's just a letter saying, "Hey, you're getting into really sticky territory. You need to, watch what you're doing." So very, very interesting. And again, glad that you brought that up, because I thought going in, wow, Twitter can do what Twitter wants. But at the same time, you're right. That is pretty complicated. So I think we're going to move into our next topic. And, freedom. I don't know how this is going to fit in with freedom of speech. I was going to try it, but I don't think I can even try. Facebook. Facebook, and I kind of wanted your response on this, but I also wanted some, maybe if you have them handy in your brain, some best browsing and, device practices, for when you use them. So for everyone out there, if you're watching the video portion, you can see the article here from 10 Network or 10 News. So they say that Facebook wants to spy on you through your webcam and smartphones. And I think that, Mike, we talked a little bit earlier about how advertising plays such a large role in keeping the internet enjoyable for, how we expect the internet to be, free and accessible by anyone without a paywall. And advertising is very important. But I think that a lot of people get put off when they say, well, we're going to start monitoring you like Reese's Monkeys, and we're going to better target you through ads based on what you behave like. I think a lot of people can get behind that being a bad thing.
yeah.
So,
I
yeah.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to get into this a little bit, and then kind of get your response. So, the byline saying that social media giant Facebook announced that it wants to get up close and personal to its users by spying on them through webcams and mobile devices. And to get more specific, because obviously that seems a little clickbaity and intentionally worded, they said that as part of the idea, Facebook would watch people through a camera in real time as they browse online, where the technology would then determine a person's emotions based on whether they look sad, happy, or bored, and then tailor the advertisements towards you. So obviously, it would be some kind of emotion-based, responsive advertising. So what do you think? Just gut reaction.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's you're right. It does sound a little clickbaity, and they've played the title a little bit to create some emotion. If only they could see people's emotion while they read that headline, right?
Right.
But but it's a little bit of what companies have been doing forever. I don't know if you remember when Gmail first came out, and I can't even tell you what year that was. But I probably was on the Computer America.
2007, I think.
I think 2004, but you were very close.
2000, was it?
I'll give you partial credit according to my quick Google search. But I remember when that came out, many experts said no one would ever use it because the big thing that Google was going to do that they widely announced was read your emails so that they could give you content, sensitive ads.
Yeah.
So if you were sending and receiving a lot of emails about buying a new car, lo and behold, you'd be getting more ads from Chevy and Ford. And so
Very,
that
very,
was
very ironic because my spam folder is just filled with male enhancement adverts, and that is what I talk about the majority of the time. So it must be
and
working.
that's right. Well, and it was very controversial, especially at the time. They were saying, that no one wants their email to be read by someone. They want them to be private. No one's going to use this Gmail service because of the privacy issues. And obviously, we all know today, no one cares now. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a computer that's reading it looking for keywords. No one gives a hoot. No one looks and says, "Oh, I'm not going to send a message to your Gmail address because the computer's going to read." No one thinks that anymore. It's just widely accepted. Now, I think it's quite a leap to go to that, to having a webcam watching you to try and read your emotional reaction while you're in front of the computer. But it's conceivable if they made some sort of a trade with the user, that Google said we're going to give you this great email service with tons of storage space, huge, all of this, and it's going to work fast and well and better than all the other free email systems. But in exchange, we're going to be giving you some better, some more precise ads.
Hmm.
So Facebook had some sort of trade so that they're giving the user something in exchange for that. I could see that as something people would conceivably do, but it's obviously got to be something they opt into. I mean, it's not like one day you're going to discover that Facebook has been using your webcam without your knowledge. A
No.
company like Facebook isn't going to do that. But to go into your other question about best practices, many users ask me about putting tape over their webcam, because almost every laptop these days has a built-in webcam at the top of it,
Right.
and that is best practice. I mean, you hear it over and over again to put a little piece of tape over that webcam, not so much to protect you from Facebook, than to protect you from hackers or people who could get in and turn on that camera remotely and potentially get some images to blackmail you with. It's not something that happens frequently, but it is something that has happened. So especially if you don't use your camera frequently, it's pretty easy just to put a piece of tape on it and forget about it.
Yeah, that is, and that is certainly what, like, I don't really do it. I know I should. I really don't do it because I use my webcam every single day, obviously for the show. But my parents and their computer, they have sticky notes on them, and
Yep.
definitely best practice. And getting back to this article about Facebook, they're they're trying to determine your emotion, and they mention in the article a couple of different ways that they can do that, including, of course, monitoring you through a webcam.
Yeah.
Obviously, not something I think Facebook is even going to try. Like, these are ideas that Facebook is floating, but they also want technology that can determine how fast or hard or determined you are typing, and that would determine if you're agitated, if you're relaxed, if you're what have you. And then they have another one where they can, they're trying to read emojis within statements and see if you use the smiley face emoji, that means you're happy. Um, and I think this goes back to, what we were talking about before the show, was this idea of artificial intelligence and, you know, uh, machine learning and that kind of thing. This is where it's really going to excel because it's not monitoring someone's facial expressions. It's going to be determining tone through machine learning, so that your computer can determine if you are happy, sad, angry, what have you, without any other data points other than what you give it. Not that it
And
takes data points from you, but that it, just takes what you give it, and then the machine learns if you are sad, happy, angry, what have you.
Yeah, and that's not an easy thing to teach machines how to do. To
No.
detect people's facial expressions and be able to accurately, assess what their emotion is. I mean, there's, people who have the resting face of someone who's not in a good mood.
Right.
How's I'm trying to choose my
I
words carefully. I
I
don't
know
want to,
that one. Yeah.
but and you look at someone sitting. I've often had that experience. I'd be sitting there, at a dinner and look across the table at someone and say, "Yeah, what's wrong with you today?" They go, "Oh, nothing at all. I was just thinking about something." And it's not an easy thing for humans to do, much less to teach a computer to do. But it's hard to
It's
say what will happen, though.
but I'm so encouraged though, because we talk a lot on the show about self-driving cars and about a lot of the breakthroughs and innovations, and we're seeing a lot of them come through artificial intelligence. And not to harp too much on this, but this is why we have IBM working on Watson, who is able to determine cancer at better rates than human doctors could.
Yeah.
You can teach these machines, while it's not simple, with enough data points, with millions of data points, they can learn, and they can learn very, very quickly. I mean, we just had that the AlphaGo, Google's deep think artificial intelligence, just
Mhm.
just beat. It was like a 1v3 Go game, and Google won again in a game with billions and trillions of permutations of moves. I mean, machine learning is great. I think it's going to totally be capable of that. It's just, you know, Facebook and advertisers, they see that kind of potential, and they want to know which way they can take it. They want to know if they can take it to a way that can make them money. And they can. It's just, how much privacy are you really going to be left with? And I think, as clickbaity as this was, um, there's a point where artificial intelligence is going to take a lot of that privacy away, but not but just like your Gmail example, but maybe not in the worst way. It's not going to record you 24/7 like some Truman Show. It's just going to
Right.
be able to determine, more facts about you than we know today.
Yeah, and if they can use that to do more than just better ads, I could conceivably see Facebook using that data to try and pick which post to show at the top of the timeline for you, or I mean the timeline
Yeah,
for you, I guess, is what
right.
I'm trying to think of. Yeah, and because they do a little bit of that already. They look at the sort of things, which people you look at most often and what posts you're likely to respond to, and then give you more posts in your timeline based on what you already show that you like, which is how you miss some stuff that some people post, especially if it's not people you interact with on a regular basis, or that the Facebook gods have decided you're not likely to respond to. And yeah, so they could use this as another data point on that. Like, they could study how long your eyes focus on a given post, or that sort of thing. There's a lot of other opportunities for here other than just ads.
Right, and it's certainly going to be utilized, I'm sure, in the future. But hey, Mike, we have just a handful of minutes left here. Why don't we get into something that I've been kind of saving the best for last? Tesla, because hey, we like talking about Tesla, and Elon Musk, as as interesting of a guy as he is. There's one thing I like about there's one thing I like about Tesla news, and that it's rarely disappointing. Like, it's rarely sad, or
Or boring.
conservative, or boring, or conservative. Like, every time he goes to, at this time I believe it was an investors conference, or actually their annual
quarterly meeting.
meeting. The shareholders quarterly meeting. I mean, he didn't go out there and say, well, projections are up or down a little bit. We're expecting this much growth, blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, check it out. We have,
Here's how we're going to change the world.
yeah, he's like, we have new cars over here. We have more power plants over there. Like, he is, Tesla is just so much fun to keep track of. So, you pointed me to this article. It's from The Verge. 7 things. Actually, maybe I might take this, but no, actually you did. 7 things we learned from Elon Musk's Tesla shareholder meeting. So, real quick, what were some standouts to you about this?
Well, the biggest announcement was about the Model Y. So Tesla has three vehicles that are out or about to be out. They have the Model S, which is the sedan. They have the Model X, which is the SUV with the Falcon wing doors, and then they have the Model 3 that is expected to start deliveries here in the very near future. And everyone has known, it's no secret, that the next one that they're going to make after that is the Model Y. And it's the whole joke that, if you line them up in the right order, it was supposed to spell sexy. The S and originally the Model 3 was called the Model E until Ford said, no, we have that trademark. So that became the Model 3. So anyhow, that's been a long-running Tesla joke, and you can buy T-shirts that have the different models in order that spells out sexy.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyhow, so that's the Model Y is going to be the next one to come out after the Model 3. It's going to be a compact SUV, so like the Model X, which is the big SUV they have out now, with the Falcon wing doors, but on a whole new, smaller platform. So the Model 3, one of the criticisms of it is that it's got a trunk instead of a hatchback. So it's got a little bit less room for storage of things on it. The Model Y is going to be more of an SUV with a little bit more storage, but still much smaller than the Model X.
Right.
And that was the big. And the other announcement of it is that the Model Y is going to be built on a whole new platform. We've been told for a long time that the Model Y was going to be built on the same platform as the Model 3. But they say no, they're going to switch now. This was news. No one had known this before the announcement, that they're going to switch to a whole new platform for the Model Y and going to change the whole wiring scheme entirely to get rid of 12-volt DC power in the car. Right now, with the
Huh.
Model S and the Model X, and presumably the Model 3, there is an old school 12-volt lead acid, battery, just a standard car 12-volt battery in the car, just like in every other car, and it runs the accessories. And when you start the car, I'm using air quotes, it connects the big main, 480-volt battery to the rest of the car. And they're going to get rid of that and get rid of a lot of the 12-volt wiring and try and simplify the wiring a great deal in the Model Y.
Very interesting. And you also have here in the article, or at least the author does, that Elon Musk even said that building the Model X on the Model S platform was a mistake. So this I mean, Tesla came in to the electric car market, and they said, we're going to change what people think of when they think of electric vehicles. And I think they've done that just from a perception point of view, but
For sure.
it's definitely interesting that they're trying to now change, what a car has to be built like, because um, cars have been built for the past 100 years, and sometimes what we're used to is what wins over what's better. So it sounds like he's really, I don't know exactly what manufacturing practices he's talking about or improvements.
Well, they've really changed the manufacturing processes in the Gigafactory where they're building the batteries.
Mhm.
And that was another part of the announcement is they expect to announce the location of 2 or 3 more Gigafactories by the end of the year.
Well, yeah, and just real quick, we have another article that we're not going to get to, but it's included in the show notes if you want to go check it out. But Tesla is planning on building 10 to 20 gigafactories around the world as it scales up over the next couple of years. So, I'm sure, like you said, 2 or 3 will be announced this year, but their long-term plans include 10 to 20 around the world.
And these
So
Gigafactories are humongous. They're
they are.
some of the biggest factories in the world, and they're going to build 10 more of them. It's crazy.
Yeah, they're definitely doing well, and we're just about out of time. But I will say that to cap things off on a lighter note, I guess Elon Musk has been tweeting strange things, I guess, supposedly, and he said that why have you been sometimes going crazy on Twitter? And Elon Musk tweeted out very simply, a little red wine, vintage record, and some Ambien, and magic is responsible for those tweets. So
He's a funny guy. He's also attributed to the stock price to him going commando.
I have seen that tweet as well. That was someone asked him boxers or briefs, and he yeah, you can ascertain the answer to that. So in the meantime, everyone, Mike Cermak, owner and
90
operator of
seconds.
TechEye.org. Mike, if you want to send people, I assume TechEye.org is where you want to send them.
Yes, sir. You got it.
All right, very, very well. So, everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and we're sorry that it got a little rushed there. I thought 10 minutes would be enough for Tesla. I see that I was mistaken.
It never is.
I have learned from this experience, and we will improve on this next time. So, Mike, thank you so much for joining us here on Computer America. And again, can't wait till next month.
Sounds good. Have a good one, Ben.
seconds.
All right, have a good one as well. So, everyone else out there, thank you so much for tuning in to Computer America. And be sure to tune in tomorrow as we check the calendar. And tomorrow on the show, we have a company on called DealRay. That's right. DealRay, I believe they do traveling apps, and traveling services. So if you're looking for, flight fare or hotel reservations or anything like that, that's right. You have another one to add to your arsenal. And we have DealRay on to talk about their application tomorrow. So in the meantime, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in, and be sure to catch us tomorrow, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, every single day, Monday through Friday. Until then, have a good one. Bye-bye, everyone.
10 seconds.